They say there's a single moment in your life when your gut screams that something catastrophic is about to happen. For me, that moment didn't happen in a dark alley. It happened on a quiet suburban sidewalk while I was waiting for an $18 pizza. I'd only been working at Tony's Pizza for a few weeks when that order came in. The address was in a nice suburban neighborhood with neat lawns and wooden swings. When I arrived, I saw a woman on the porch yelling into her phone. Her face was red, and she was waving her free hand frantically. "I don't care what your mother said, Brian. You promised you'd be here by noon." Her little girl, about 5 or 6, was riding circles on a pink tricycle in the driveway, completely ignoring her mother's meltdown. I grabbed the pizza and walked up. The woman barely looked at me, just held up a finger, mouthed 1 second, and kept yelling. "No, you're the one who's going to listen to me. I've had enough of your pathetic excuses." I stood there, holding the pizza, trying not to eavesdrop. That's when I noticed the black van parked about 3 houses down. It was an older model with tinted windows. I didn't think much of it first, but when I looked closer, I saw a guy in a hoodie sitting in the driver's seat, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. His eyes were locked on the little girl. A chill crawled up my neck as I looked from the child to the van, and then to the mother still yelling on her phone. The woman finally ended her call and walked toward me, digging through her purse. "Sorry about that. How much?" $18.50, I said, keeping my eyes on the van. "Ma'am, I think you should get your daughter inside," I said. "There's a man over there watching her." The woman frowned and looked up. "What are you talking about?" I pointed toward the van. "That black van. There's a guy inside. He's been staring at her. I really think you should—" "Oh my God, mind your own business," she snapped, handing me a 20. "Keep the change." She grabbed the pizza and went inside, slamming the door behind her. The little girl kept playing, humming to herself. I hesitated for a moment, keys in my hand, wondering what to do. The woman had basically told me to screw off, but the van was still there. And so was the creepy guy inside. I sighed and got back in my car, but I couldn't bring myself to start it. Instead, I just sat there watching the little girl. She had gotten off her tricycle and was now playing with chalk on the driveway. 5 minutes passed and he hadn't moved. But just as I turned the key, I saw the van door slide open. The man stepped out. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing jeans and a black net gaiter pulled up under his hood. He walked toward the house casually, like he belonged there. My heart started pounding. When he got close to the girl, he crouched down and pulled a candy bar from his pocket. She looked up at him and smiled, a small, innocent smile. That's when he grabbed her and clamped a hand over her mouth. She kicked and struggled as he rushed toward the van. I didn't even think. I just opened my car door. I ran across the lawn yelling, "Leave her alone." His head snapped toward me. The child was crying and fighting, but he was too strong, and the van was just a few steps away. My mind froze. I had to do something. "Help! Somebody help!" I screamed as I sprinted. He started running too, still clutching her arm. She was screaming, her little feet dragging on the pavement. The van door was wide open, waiting. I was about 10 feet away when I spotted a rock on the ground. I grabbed it and threw it as hard as I could. It hit him on the shoulder and he stumbled. His grip loosened just enough for her to break free. "Run! Go inside!" I shouted. The guy turned and glared at me, his eyes full of rage. For a second, I thought he was going to come after me, but instead he sprinted back to the van, jumped in, and sped off. I tried to catch the license plate, but it was covered in mud. The van disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing there shaking. The front door flew open and the mother came running out. She grabbed her daughter and collapsed on the lawn, sobbing. Neighbors started to come out, asking what had happened. I told them everything, and someone called 911. The police arrived quickly. They took statements, asked for descriptions, and checked the neighbors' cameras. One camera had caught the van driving away, but the plate was only partially visible. The officer told me they'd had reports of a black van lurking around nearby neighborhoods. This was the first time anyone had actually gotten a good look. "You saved that little girl's life," he said. "If you hadn't noticed, she would have been gone." The mother kept crying, apologizing over and over. She hugged me, saying she should have listened, that she'd been careless. She said she never thought something like that could happen in her own yard. They caught the guy a week later, trying the same thing 50 kilometers away. He had a record for child abduction going back 15 years. The police said that based on what they found, the girl would have been his 8th victim. I still have nightmares about what almost happened. In those dreams, I listen to the mother instead of my gut. I mind my own business and drive away. And later I see on the news that a little girl disappeared from her yard, and I imagine what she must have gone through because I decided it wasn't my problem. Our intuition brought you here for a reason. Don't ignore it. I bring these stories out of the shadows and onto your screen every week. If you love the thrill, subscribe and join our circle. Remember, in the shadows, not every story has a happy ending. It happened on a Wednesday in October. Mark, my husband, runs Tony's Pizza downtown and was working late that night doing inventory. My 7-year-old son Liam and I were eating dinner when the doorbell rang. I glanced at the clock. It was 7 p.m. When I looked through the peephole, Dylan, one of Mark's new hires, was standing there with a pizza box. I'd met him a few times before. He was quiet, polite, and never caused any trouble. "No problem," I said. "Hey, Dylan," I greeted as I opened the door. "If you're looking for Mark, he's still at work." "I know," he replied with a tight smile. "He sent this for you, on the house." I didn't remember Mark mentioning any pizza, but it wasn't unusual. Sometimes he sent leftovers home. "Oh, thanks," I said, reaching for the box. But Dylan didn't let go. That's when I noticed his bloodshot eyes and the faint smell of alcohol. Before I could shut the door, Dylan pushed his way inside. I stepped back, more confused than scared. "What are you doing?" He slammed the door and threw the pizza box to the floor. "Your husband fired me today, said I was stealing." My heart started pounding. "Dylan, you need to leave right now." "Stealing," he laughed, throwing his head back. "I took 40 euros, Sarah. My power was about to get shut off, and your precious Mark fired me over 40 euros, called me a thief in front of everyone. I'm sorry, but that doesn't..." He grabbed me by the hair. I screamed as pain shot across my scalp like fire. He slapped me so hard, everything went white for a second. "Shut up, bitch," he growled. He hit me again, and I tasted blood in my mouth. "Mom?" Liam's voice came from the kitchen doorway as he ran in. "Run, Liam, get out," I screamed. But my little boy froze in place, his face pale as a sheet, still clutching his juice box. Dylan dragged me toward the living room by my hair. I tried to fight back, but he was so much bigger and stronger. He threw me against the wall hard. Pain exploded in my shoulder. "This is your fault. Your husband's fault. You're going to pay." He pulled a gun from his jacket and pointed it at my face. "Dylan, please don't do this. I had a life too, before your husband ruined it." That's when Liam moved. He charged at Dylan, screaming, "Leave my mom alone." He hit Dylan's legs, kicking and punching with all his strength. Dylan stumbled, and I tried to reach the door, but he recovered quickly. "You little brat," he shouted, shoving Liam so hard that his head struck the corner of the coffee table with a crack. He fell to the floor and didn't move. Blood started pooling beneath his head. "Liam, my baby, wake up," I screamed, crawling toward him, but there was so much blood. Dylan looked at what he'd done and panicked. I didn't mean to. I just pushed him. Oh my God! He bolted out the door, leaving it wide open. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher tried to calm me down, but I could barely breathe. Still, I pressed my hands against the wound on Liam's head, trying to stop the bleeding. His eyes were closed. his small body completely still. "Stay with me, baby," I whispered through sobs. "Please, stay with mommy." The ambulance arrived quickly. Paramedics took over while I stood there, covered in his blood. They lifted him onto a stretcher, and I climbed in beside, holding his hand. One of them mentioned a skull fracture, a brain injury, words that barely registered. At the hospital, doctors rushed him into surgery. Mark arrived, terrified, and I collapsed in his arms, sobbing as I told him everything. The police came to take my statement, promising to find Dylan. Around midnight, the doctor came out. "Your son is in a coma. The head trauma was severe. We've done everything we can. All we can do now is hope for a miracle." I stayed by Liam's bedside for 3 days straight, holding his hand, talking to him, begging him to come back to me. Mark brought food I couldn't eat, clothes I barely changed into. The nurses tried to make me rest, but I couldn't leave him. On the 3rd day, the police came back. They'd found Dylan in an alley 2 towns over, alive, but barely so. He'd been arrested, charged with assault and attempted murder. He'd be spending a long time in prison. I sat by Liam's bed, his tiny hand limp in mine, the steady beep of the monitors, the only sign he was still here. My throat ached from whispering prayers that seemed to vanish into the air. The room smelled of disinfectant and fear. I brushed his hair from his forehead, my voice trembling. "The man who hurt you is behind bars now, my baby. Please come back to us for a moment." There was nothing, just silence and the sound of the machines. Then I felt it. His tiny fingers moved against my palm. My heart stopped. "Liam," I whispered. His eyelids fluttered, his chest rose, and then his familiar eyes met mine. "Liam," he murmured, his voice weak and broken. "Are you safe now?" I didn't even realize I was crying until my tears fell onto his hand. I nodded quickly, choking out a laugh that was half a sob. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm safe. You saved me." I pulled him gently into my arms, careful of the IV lines, burying my face in his hair. He smelled of home, like everything good I thought I'd lost. "You're my little hero," I whispered, holding him tighter against my chest, feeling his heartbeat against mine. The world outside could keep turning, but in that moment, all I felt was his warmth, his life, his courage. My little boy was awake, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed we both were going to be okay.